to The Kitchen Table, a show dedicated to helping you escape diet culture, gain trust with food, honor your body, and live a brighter life. Hello, happy Monday, and welcome back to The Kitchen Table. I am so glad you're here. I'm your host, Alicia Brown, an anti-diet registered dietitian nutritionist. And today, on this beautiful, wonderful fall day, I cannot wait to welcome you into my first ever Q&A episode, my first ever question answer episode at The Kitchen Table. Thanks for joining me for it, and thank you for the questions that you submitted on my Instagram. I posted a little question box on my stories on Instagram last week, and I received just like the best questions. I was reading through them and just thinking, oh yes, we need to answer that one, and yes, we need to answer that question, and so it felt really expansive to read through them, and thank you for sharing them. I think what felt really expansive for me actually as I was reading through your questions is feeling that you can first share any friction that you have in your relationships with food and body. Like, thank you for sharing those questions, and within that, sharing some of the frustrations and fears and anxieties that you have about food in your body. It's an honor to receive that. And also, what makes me feel just so purposeful in this work is to receive that and know that I might have something for you that could provide you some healing on your journey to help heal the relationships that you have with food in your body, to help you see through those insecurities, to live brighter, bolder versions of yourselves in your lives. And that is what this show is all about. That's what my practice is all about. That is like what my life's work is, I feel truly, is to help us live bigger, bolder, brighter lives by really sifting through all of our food and body stuff. And so thank you for sending questions about some food and body stuff that you have going on at my Instagram at aliciabrown.rdn, and any questions that you have just about like intuitive eating and what it is and what it's about as well. And that's really what this question from Judy is about today. And the question that was randomly selected, yes, was from Judy. And Judy, yes, you'll be receiving a copy of that intuitive eating text. I'm so excited to send that out to you. Thank you so much for this question. And I'll just read off this question so you can fully absorb it before I totally unpack it. Judy's question is, how do you eat intuitively when you are trying to create healthier habits with food and meals? Eating what you want and not depriving yourself, but still acknowledging healthy food habits. Thanks, Judy. Thank you so much, Judy, for submitting this question. This is a great question, and there is so much to unpack. There's so much to unpack, but I want to keep this just really clear and concise, but first acknowledging that there's a lot of nuance, and also first acknowledging that, like, of course, we all want to live healthy lives, right? Like, yes, we all want to live healthy. We all want to eat healthy, and we all want to feel really good in our bodies, right? Like, we want to feel like we're doing a service to ourselves when we eat. And we want to feel like we are giving ourselves nutrients and that we are healthy so that we can remain healthy, as we age and, stay healthy and free from disease and be able to do all of the things that we want to do every day with energy. We want to feel strong. We want to feel like we just can do everything that we want to do and live a long, healthy life, and that our body can help us do all of those things. Yes. Like, that's why we want to be healthy, right? Is so that we can live really full and bright and purposeful lives. Of course, like, we need to be healthy in order to do that. And I think that we all have our different definitions of maybe what health looks like right now. That might be a good practice for you, is to really define what health looks like for you. I know for me, when I think of health, energy is like one of the biggest things for me that I think about with health, right? Like, energy for me is like just like the life force, right? Like, energy is such a great actually indicator of health, right? And so really what does healthy look like for you is a really good question on how to start this. And of course, we all want to be healthy, live healthy, full lives with energy. That's just kind of like how I'm defining health here on that. But if we really wanted to break this question down, I think it comes in two parts. I think that there's, on one hand, there's the conversation about making healthy food choices with meals and snacks. And also on the other hand, there's like having a healthy relationship with food. And there's a big difference between the two. And so I think that when you have healthy food choices, and our goal is to make just like healthy food choices with meals and snacks, this can get a little bit rigid. We can be a little bit rigid with nutrition when we're so focused on just health, and that rigidity can disconnect us from our bodies. I can jump back, and I talked about this a bunch, but just in my own personal experience in college being a nutrition student, we were really taught what healthy foods were and what nutrition does to our bodies, how we absorb it, how the body picks up and utilizes nutrients, right? Like I learned all about that stuff. So it was really for me like there was no question that I was going to choose the healthiest thing that I could, because I understood what that would do to my body. And I understood what it would do to not make the healthier choice. But in college, I did not have a healthy relationship with food, even though I was making a lot of healthy, quote unquote, choices. Okay, to break this down more, this can lead to a very yo-yo relationship with food, because when our body wants the thing that's not healthy, we can now feel we've done a disservice to the body. We can now feel like, we can feel shame and resentment towards the self and guilt for not choosing the healthy thing. This might even look like going to the restaurant and only focusing on like the healthy, quote unquote, sections of the menu. There's a lot of conditions on the relationship with food that you might have in this space, because there's only a certain allowance of foods that are permissible, right, to the body. Only foods that have the most nutrients, only foods that meet your standards of what healthy food looks like, or what meets a diet's standard of what healthy food looks like. And with that, there's a lot of conditions. We could even break this down more and go back to like what the careful eater looks like. And the prior episode, the episode titled, What Kind of Eater Are You?, where I talk about the careful eater and how the careful eater is analyzing food labels, maybe making substitutions in recipes, like substituting sour cream for Greek yogurt or something, which is, absolutely not bad. If you love that substitution, roll with it. It's just an example of always having to maybe choose the trendier or healthier thing. And when we don't do that, or when we're not eating the quote healthier thing, we can sense the backlash of that. And the backlash of that can look like the rebellion against that controlled relationship with food. That can look like feeling a little bit out of control with food. Like say that now cupcakes, chocolate, fun foods are available that you might not have you might not have allowed yourself permission to eat before, and now they're available. We have a greater tendency to overindulge in those things because they're available and we enjoy them, but then we can feel the guilt and resentment towards the self for allowing ourselves those foods. That can lead to a very tug-of-war relationship with food, and solely looking at food to offer us nutrients or to offer us just health-promoting benefits of food. That can lead to actually an unhealthy relationship with food. And I also believe it's not really sustainable, right? Like having conditions on food, any conditions placed on food, will always lead to some level of guilt or shame, because it's conditional. Even when we say, you can allow yourself a little bit of that, or just moderate your consumption of that. It's saying okay, so can I just have 5, or can I have 6, or should I have just 3? And if I have 4, is that bad? Even those are things that are conditions placed on foods. And so I, again, kind of go back to asking yourself, what is your definition of health? What are your definitions of healthy foods? What are healthy foods? What to you is making healthy food choices? And what types of things does that exclude? Because those things that are excluded from that list are the conditions that you have on your food, and those conditions will lead to an unhealthy relationship with food. Any conditions placed on your food choices will lead to an unhealthy relationship with food at some point. And so this goes back to that conversation of making healthy food choices. This can get a little rocky when we're solely focused on making those healthy food choices and having a healthy relationship with food. Take this. If you take nothing else from this episode, I think that we can have a healthy relationship with food while making healthy food choices. But I think when we're solely focused on just making healthy food choices, it's very difficult for us to have a healthy relationship with food. So that, I think, is just the basis of this question. Because when we have a healthy relationship with food and there are no conditions placed on foods, we can think of how foods feel in the body. We can think of satisfaction, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. We can allow ourselves freedom to eat any and all foods, so there is no guilt or shame or resentment there, and we can feel physically, mentally, and emotionally well. There's no charged place on foods. There's no rebellion against foods that we are not allowing ourselves. There are less incidences, perhaps, of binging or overindulging to the point of maybe like that physical, very uncomfortable feeling. We can feel like we can have foods again, right? Like there's freedom in that, and with that freedom and the ability to listen to the body, we can heal that relationship with food because we know that we can have those foods again. We can have the foods that we want. And within that, our body may well choose foods that are healthy foods. Diet culture does not get to like have all of the fruits and vegetables only. Oftentimes when I hear of people asking me questions about intuitive eating, it's kind of similar to this question actually. They think like, oh, Alicia, I would just eat cupcakes all the time. I would just eat the chocolate all the time. No, actually. Like when we allow ourselves that permission to eat any and all foods, the chocolate then just becomes the chocolate. And the cupcakes just become the cupcakes. And we can actually listen to the body and discover what we really want. And what we really want may or may not be those things. And I love when my clients like feel such at awe when they discover that like, wow, I actually like really wanted that salad and it was fantastic. Like it was exactly like the crunch that I wanted. It was light and refreshing. I wasn't extremely hungry at the time. They can listen to their hunger and fullness cues so they can know like, yeah, I wasn't really exactly that hungry at the time. So like this felt like really satisfying and nourishing. And I was able to move on from that food experience. That to me is having a healthy relationship with food. There's no conditions placed on any foods so that we can actually finally listen to the body to help guide us in making food decisions. Now, what a separate episode might be on this. Oh my gosh, and then we could talk about this for days because this actually is like so fundamental to like why intuitive eating exists. This question is so fundamental to like actually why we're even talking about this whole thing, because we all want to be healthy and we all want to make the healthy food choices, but intuitive eating exists because we know that there's something even greater than just making healthy food choices. Our relationship with food matters so much more than just making the healthy food choices. How do we feel about those foods? How do we perceive those foods, right? How do we interact with those foods? How do we feel before and after, physically, mentally, and emotionally? We have to unpack all of those things, and that is what the healthy relationship with food is. And once we have a healthy relationship with food, you will be amazed of all of the nutrition that you'll get in from your diet. You'll be amazed of all of the energy that you have. You'll be amazed of the mental clarity that, in my definition, fits my definition of health, to be sharp and to be mentally clear. You'll be so amazed that you'll be happier mentally and emotionally. Perhaps after healing your relationship with food, you'll open up more brain space to allow more stuff into your life that doesn't pertain to food and body. And so all in all, focusing solely on making healthy food choices, the rigidity of that can actually take away from our bodies, from our own innate gift of being able to listen to and trust in our bodies, because we're solely using our intellect and rational brain and what we've sourced from the media and sourced from nutrition and diet books of like what is healthy and what that definition looks like. But really, when we listen to our body, what can surface is what we really want. And what we really want after we build trust in our body is not always going to be the chocolate and cupcakes. What we really want is not going to always be the quote unquote fun foods. It's not always going to be the nutrient poor foods. We're going to want foods that make us feel really good. And when we listen to the body and recognize what the body feels and recognize what's going to satisfy the body in that moment in time, that is when we meet those needs, we can have a really healthy relationship with food. And that is all of what we're trying to do by forcing that healthy relationship with food by just focusing on nutrient value. And so that's why intuitive eating exists, is to help us heal our relationship with food, which then incorporates nutritious food and nutritious food choices. And Judy, when you receive the book, there is a gentle nutrition chapter in there where, of course, there's like nuance to this, right? Like, of course, we can talk about like, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and, how they sit in the body and how they move out of the body, right? Like there's so many things to talk about within nutrition that can become relevant. But when we don't have a healthy relationship with food first, that can just become another diet. That can become another rigid set of rules that just says, okay, this amount of protein and fat and carb. Okay, and then this amount of fiber, and then this amount of something else. And that can become really rigid. That can make us feel like there is a right and wrong way to eat. And so even though there is a chapter on gentle nutrition in that book, I cannot advise enough to read the book. You don't have to necessarily read it in order because there's a bunch of principles that you might want to skip around to, but save that gentle nutrition piece for the end. Oh, and this is just like, even in that book, it's just like illuminating exactly what's coming up for me in this question, which is that yes, we can focus on the nutrition bit later. Like that is a really important bit. You might have questions about like, hey, what foods are sources of vitamin C? Can I consider like getting more of those in? Okay, so if it's between a kiwi and an orange, both of these sound really good. Let's get both, or whatever. I mean, like there's knowledge that you can seek out there that can be used in a really healthy way. But when we're solely trying to just make food choices solely based on that, and we forget to reject the dieting mentality, we forget to listen to the body and its hunger and fullness cues, when we forget what the actual purpose is of eating, which is to feel mentally, physically, and emotionally satisfied so we can move on with our lives, when we forget about that and just solely focus on the nutrition piece, we miss out on all of these other aspects that often backfires, and often it doesn't lead to a healthy relationship with food. So in the contrary, I would suggest starting off reading that book and discovering what a healthy relationship with food can look like by first rejecting the dieting mentality, and then kind of moving onward to see, gosh, well, where does nutrition play a role in this, right? Like after I listen to my body and after I'm kind of starting to discover what makes my body feel really good, we can kind of use nutrition as something that can feel supportive to your healthy relationship with food. But having nutrition be the sole thing that drives our food choices, that can lead to kind of an unhealthy tug-of-war relationship with food. Okay, so that's all for this question, and that's all the questions that I'm going to answer today, because I was like, huge question to unpack. And I don't know in future episodes if I'm going to select multiple questions or just this one question. I don't know. I'm still playing around with all this stuff and totally still just owning the fact that I am so new to the podcast space and just trying to like see what works. But that was a very loaded, excellent, great question. I hope that I addressed it fully. If there's anything that is coming up for you as a question based off of this question or anything else that you'd like further support with based on this question, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me at aliciabrown.rdn on Instagram. You can also find me at my website. There's a contact tab, www.nutritionwithalicia.com. That's funny, it's nutritionwithalicia.com. Actually, really quick side note, I would so change that. I bought that domain name like a long time ago. I know we just talked about like how nutrition should just like totally reign superior, and that we have to talk about like our healthy relationship with food. Maybe my website should be healthy relationship with food with alicia.com. Maybe that's more suiting. But I've had this domain name from years. So yeah, it's still nutritionwithalicia.com. You can find me there or on Instagram. And also, if you've gleaned anything from this episode or prior episodes, or you're just really enjoying the show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to screenshot and share this podcast if you've enjoyed it. I so appreciate that. Please tag me at aliciabrown.rdn again on Instagram, and I can't wait to reshare and just spread the word about intuitive eating. So many other people have this same question, so the more that you do your part, if this resonated with you, perhaps to advocate for intuitive eating, or to share this message, or to share this message with somebody who could benefit from it, I so appreciate that. And maybe also rate this episode if you have a moment to do it as well. You don't even have to leave leave a comment or a long comment, of course I appreciate those, but rating the episode helps as well. There are so many dieting podcasts out there, and I'm just trying to get the message of intuitive eating on the charts, right? I totally feel this is my most purposeful work, and so thank you for helping me spread the light, to spread this message to others that could totally receive it, and to help kickstart their journey into eating intuitively and as well, and to rejecting the dieting paradigm. Oh man. Now what have I got going on? I actually record this episode not on Monday. It's Sunday right now, and you'll be hearing this episode tomorrow, which is Monday. But right now, just at the end of this episode recording, I am going to go back. We are moving into our new house this weekend. I'm actually sitting on this really uncomfortable stool right now, and I am so sore. Talk about, mind and body congruence. I am totally aware of how sore my body is after just like cleaning and moving, and I'm just remaining in such gratitude for it because we've been just waiting for so long to make this move. Like a year. And so I'm just trying to just like remain in gratitude for it. But also, last thing I want to just say is like tap into your body maybe right now and just like see like, if anything is coming up for the body for you, take a moment to attune to it. What does it need? Are you feeling well rested? Do you need rest? Are you hungry? Do you need food? Are you cold? Do you need a jacket? Right, for me, like I'm sitting in this chair right now and I'm just thinking about the moving that I have to do yet today and how sore I am from yesterday. What my body needs right now is a stretch. Like I could just do like reaching for my toes right now. That would just feel so good. So as I was thinking that myself and what I've got to do after the recording of this episode, I just got to treat my body well so I can continue moving, so I can continue showing up in life beyond moving, and I hope that you can do the same for your body today and whatever that means or looks like for you. So take a moment to attune to your body, get your needs met with food today, and of course, if you have any questions about intuitive eating or anything that we've talked about in this episode, please let me know, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care.